Afife Nurbanu, Valide, Sultan, Ottoman Sultan II, Haseki Sultan as the legal wife of Selim III, Sultan III. She was the mother of Murad Selim and the Valide Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Haseki is the bride of Harem Sultan. She was one of the most important figures of the women's reign period. Conflicting theories describe him as being of Venetian, Jewish, or Greek origin. Her birth name may have been Cecilia Venier Baffo, Rachel, or Kale Cartanu. There are various theories about Nurbanu's ethnic origins. Although no theory has been conclusively proven, the theory of Venetian origin is both the best known, the most reliable, and the one with the most consensus among historians. In 1900, Emilio Spagni claimed that she was the daughter of Niccolò Venier and Violante Baffo, and a Venetian nobleman, and that she was kidnapped in the Third Ottoman-Venetian War when Paros was captured by Ottoman Admiral Barbaros Hayreddin Pasha. Sultana also often said that he was of Venetian noble origin, but never gave the name of his family. Franz Babinger followed up his view that Nurbanu Sultan was Cecilia Venier Baffo in his article Dizionario Biografico degli Italiani. In 1992, historian Benjamin Arbel put forward a new theory that Nurbanu was a Greek from Corfu named Kale Cartanu, the daughter of Nicholas Cartanos, and was kidnapped from the island in 1538. According to this theory, Venetian senators arbitrarily chose to create a new identity for her as Cecilia Venier Baffo, which she adopted for political and material gains. This theory has been accepted by Italian historian Maria Pia Pedani and Turkish historian Emre Safa Gürkan, among others. According to the second historian, the fact that they established an inter-imperial bond in order to gain favor with the Venetians shows that the Ottomans also considered this common past as a diplomatic asset. Turkish historian Ahmet Refik, like some other Turkish historians, believed that he was of Jewish origin and that his name was Rachel Marié Nassi, as he involved Jews in state affairs. Nurbanu, who was said to have stood out in the palace with her beauty and extraordinary intelligence, was sent to Manisa in 1543 as one of Prince Selim's harem daughters and gave him 4 daughters and a son named Murad, who would become the next sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Nurbanu became the favorite wife of Prince Selim and the mother of Prince Murad, the future Murad III, 1546. While her husband Selim was still a prince, Nurbanu was the head of the prince's harem in Manisa. After becoming sultan, Selim allowed his favorite wife, Haseki Nurbanu, to stay in Topkapi Palace throughout his reign, as did his predecessor, Süleyman the Magnificent. Even after Selim started taking other concubines, Nurbanu continued to be his favorite for her beauty and intelligence. As the heir's mother, she advised her husband, although it was far from normal at the time, too. Selim often asked Nurbanu for advice on various matters out of respect for her common sense. Venetian ambassador Jacopo Soranzor reported, Haseki is said to have been extremely loved and honored by His Majesty, both for her magnificent beauty and for her unusual intelligence. During this time, he became a formidable figure with far-reaching influence. According to some sources, mostly Venetian records, Nurbanu Sultan's influence was so great that she effectively ran the government together with Grand Vizier Sokolu Mehmed Pasha. Selim transferred almost all of his powers to Sokolu, who ruled the empire in his place. Nurbanu did not intervene directly in politics, but there was no doubt that he consulted regularly with Sokolu. The Ottoman Empire was at its peak, and the succession system was far from stable, and conflicts over the imperial throne were common. It was not uncommon for the losers in such struggles to be massacred along with their entire families. However, Nurbanu Sultan was determined to solve the possible difficulties in the future and to prevent possible interventions when the time came for her son to replace his father. 2. When Selim's reign ended in 1574, Haseki Nurbanu received 1,100 aksi per day, while Selim's other wives, each the mother of a son, received only 40 aksha. Additionally, Selim secured the position of his firstborn son by repeatedly publicly declaring that Murad was his heir and sentenced his other sons to death. Selim legally married Nurbanu Sultan to emphasize that only one woman was important to him. Embassy records indicate that the marriage took place in early 1571. This news is conveyed as an expression of how much Selim loves Nurbanu, and that the only legitimate heir is their son Murad through marriage. Prince Murad was married to Sultan II in 1574. He was sent to serve as the governor of Manisa at the time of Selim's death. Nurbanu first heard the news, then ordered everyone to keep their mouths shut. He did not share the Sultan's death with anyone except Grand Vizier Sokolu Mehmed Pasha. His aim was to ensure that his son Murad came to Istanbul secretly before anyone could take advantage of this situation. This is generally accepted as true because the death of the Sultan and his son's position as a sanjak away from the capital created an excellent opportunity for those who wanted to seize power. Nurbanu realized this before anyone else and took action quickly. Security and privacy in the harem were strict, and no one was allowed to leave during World War II. He did not know when Selim actually died. Nurbanu did not tell anyone about this and hid her husband's lifeless body in a freezer and sent a message to Manisa for her son to come to Constantinople immediately. This situation was not made public until 12 days later when Murad came, and Nurbanu handed over Selim's body. Her son became Sultan, and Nurbanu reached the rank of Valid Sultan, the highest position a woman could hold in the Ottoman Empire. Nurbanu's real influence began during this period. He had absolute power between 1574 and 1583. Although she had an influence on many things as a Haseki in the past, she mostly supported her husband Selim in the background and gradually established her own circles for the future. However, she set to work immediately after becoming a mother and strengthened both herself and her son by moving people she trusted to higher positions. She was revered as Valide-e Atik Sultan, the first powerful mother of the reigning sultan, throughout her son's reign until her death. Nurbanu became the first woman to have both the Haseki and Valid ranks. Valid Sultan ranked 2. Although it has existed since the time of Bayezid Tassim, it was Henry III who was the first to convert it into a legally registered position in the name of his mother, Nurbanu. He became Murad. This means that Valid Sultan had previously only appeared in every list as Mother of the Sultan. However, thanks to Murad, the Sultan's mother gained the official title of Valid Sultan. With the official title of Valid Sultan, she joined the highest officials of the empire. Thus, Nurbanu began to be called Nurbanu Valid Sultan instead of Mother of Sultan Murad III. And with this change, the governor not only fulfilled the usual responsibilities according to tradition, but also her duties and opportunities increased significantly. Nurbanu was involved in the administration through her influence over her son, and even the Sultan himself appeared to have no say in his own administration. Sultan Murad had an immeasurable respect and love for his mother. Perhaps no other sultan was so devoted to his mother. He asked his mother's opinion on everything and followed her advice. Although Nurbanu did not try to rule through her son, as in the case of Kosum Sultan, she helped her child become a just and valuable sultan who was loved, accepted, and respected by the people. In this way, he gained a high status and became an important and powerful figure of the dynasty. Nurbanu's pocket money, which reached high amounts among both dynasty members and high-ranking officials, is considered an indicator of this power. As Valide Sultan, she was allocated 2,000 silver coins per day. Nurbanu's highly trusted bridesmaids, Kanfeda Hatun, Razia Hatun, and Hubbi Hatun, also appear to have been very powerful and influential during her reign. Among the sultans, Murad was the most devoted to his mother. However, Nurbanu's monopoly and superiority were still under threat. Murad did not have many wives and was devoted to only one woman, Safi. After Murad became sultan, Safiya Sultan was given the rank of Haseki and thus became an influential figure, although much less than Nurbanu. Safiya wanted to have a say in state affairs, so she tried to influence Murad, which made Nurbanu dislike her. His attempts were in vain because Murad did not listen to any woman except his mother. Although the details of the struggle between Safi and Nurbanu are unknown, it is estimated that the hostilities within the harem reached their peak in 1582. It seemed logical for Safi to give birth to more children to prevent the danger of the dynasty's extinction, but she had not been able to get pregnant for years. In cases where she became pregnant, she either had a miscarriage or the child was born prematurely or later died. However, Murad did not accept new concubines because he loved Safi very much and refused to have a relationship with anyone else. Nurbanu then devised a plan and accused Safi of using black magic to render the sultan impotent. The rumor began to spread throughout the city, and eventually Murad exiled Safiye to the old palace. Doctors resolved Murad's impotence, and he had dozens of children in the following years. His grandson Mehmed openly disagreed with both him and the sultan for the sake of his mother, Safi. As a matter of fact, it is clearly stated in the sources that Nurbanu was afraid that Mehmed's attitudes would anger Murad and that her son might issue a death sentence for his grandson. Even though Nurbanu did not love Safi, she loved Mehmed like all her grandchildren. This is clearly stated in a follow-up report dated 1582. Accordingly, after his circumcision, Mehmed impregnated one of Nurbanu's servants, which was tried to be concealed because the girl was a member of Murad's harem, not Mehmed's. Since Mehmed's relationship with his father was already very bad, Nurbanu killed the girl to hide this news from Murad. It seems that Murad never understood what happened and eventually managed to mend his relationship with Mehmed. When Nurbanu died suddenly in 1583, less than 2 years later, in early 1585, Safi regained her husband's trust and love. She and her exiled daughters returned to the royal harem. Thus, Safi regained enough power and influence to protect her son and prepare for his reign, even more than before. Safi, like Nurbanu and her predecessor Hurrem Sultan, managed to fend off the opposition by creating a circle of supporters alongside herself and her son. Following the death of her husband Murad in January 1595, Safi, like her late mother-in-law Nurbanu, managed to keep this news secret until her son's arrival in Constantinople, Nurbanu, her son the third. After Murad became the sultan, she effectively managed the government together with Grand Vizier Sokolu Mehmed Pasha, who served as the Sultan's deputy during the women's reign as Valide Sultan. His intermediary with the world outside the harem, his Kira, was Esther Handali. She corresponded with Catherine de' Medici, Queen of France. It is understood that Nurbanu Sultan used Kira Esther Handali, who was of Jewish origin, for her personal affairs and had a financial relationship with Joseph Nasi, Duke of Naxos. Perhaps because of this network of relationships, rumors spread that he was of Jewish origin. Among his close men are Babu Sa'ad Agassi Gazanfer Aga, Priest Semsi Pasha, and the powerful figures of the harem, Konfeda Hatun and Raziye Hatun, who have been with him since Manisa. There is extensive information in the envoy reports about Nurbanu Sultan's close political and diplomatic contact with the Venetians. In 1583, the Venetian Senate agreed to send him a gift worth 2,000 Venetian gold coins in recognition of his useful services. According to another rumor, he prevented a possible Ottoman attack on Crete and warned Captain Ali Pasha not to declare war on Venice. The most productive sources describing Nurbanu Sultan as a woman who never forgot her Venetian roots are Venetian records. She reportedly maintained contact with Venice through her lady-in-waiting Tirana, who was in regular contact with the Council of Ten in Venice, from where she, Tirana, received an allowance as the Venice representative. During the 9-year Valide Sultanate and co-regent, 1574 to 1583, his politics were so pro-Venetian that the Genoese Republic hated him. Some even suggested that he was poisoned by a Genoese agent. He died on the 7th of December 1583 in the palace in Enigmatic district. This mosque complex was built by Mimar Sinan on a large area. The component buildings in the complex are built on a series of consecutive and stepped flat floors. Structures such as mosques, madrasas, schools, and lodges were built on 2 separate planes. To the west of these, on a lower plane, a complex of buildings designed to accommodate social functions such as charity was built. The bath is in the south. Darussafa is an integral part of the mosque complex built by Mimar Sinan, the great architect of the Ottoman Empire, between 1570 and 1579 under the auspices of Nurbanu Sultan. The lands allocated by Nurbanu Sultan for the hospital in the mosque complex are as follows. They are scattered in many corners of Istanbul, Rumelia, and Anatolia. The treatment and needs of patients applying to the hospital were met with the income transferred from these sources. A department specialized in revenue management was also included in the Darussafa building. During her 9-year reign, Nurbanu had the famous Ottoman architect Mimar Sinan build the Atik Valide Mosque and the surrounding complex in the Üsküdar district of Istanbul, where a Jewish bath had previously been located. The construction of the complex was completed and put into service at the end of 1583, just before Nurbanu's death on December 7, 1583. Atik Valide complex consists of a mosque, madrasa, primary school, lodge, Quran and Hadith schools, soup kitchen, hospital, and bathhouse. Sinan the architect designed his great mosques as finely tuned instruments for the purpose of voicing the Quran as text, as event, in a recreation of the original revelation. He even integrated sounding vessels into the domes to ensure a beautiful execution of the sacred text. Based on the donation document, Vakfi, the soundscape that Nurbanu created through her patronage can be reconstructed. Nurbanu Sultan also had soup kitchens and baths built in Merkan, Alamdag, and Langa in Istanbul, and became the first Ottoman woman to have a library built in a social complex. The stone needed during the construction of this mosque and social complex was supplied from places close to Istanbul such as Iznik and Gallipoli, and the wood was supplied from Sapanca and Iznik. Her husband the Seku. He was buried in Salem's mausoleum inside Hagia Sophia, then a mosque, in Sultanahmet. Nurbanu, her son the third. He died in Istanbul on the 7th of December 1583 during Murad's reign. Sektu in his tomb in the courtyard of Hagia Sophia. She was buried next to Selim, thus becoming the first sultan's wife to have the honor of being buried next to her husband. Nurbanu Sultan was highly respected not only during her lifetime, but also after her death. Contrary to the tradition of sultans staying in the palace during the funeral ceremony, their third. Murad accompanied his mother's body, both walking and crying, to the Fatih Mosque, where the funeral service would be read. Fatih Mosque, the farthest mosque from the palace, was allocated for the funeral ceremony. This choice not only ensured that as many people as possible could bless the spirit of Nurbanu Sultan, but also maintained the widespread appreciation of this religious respect shown to her by the inhabitants of the imperial capital. Before Nurbanu's death, Paolo Contarini, the Venetian ambassador to the Ottoman court, said, "All good and evil come from the Queen Mother." When Nurbanu died in December 1583, Contarini's successor reported, "The death of this woman saddened some and pleased others from the point of view of their interests. The great authority which she had over her son brought considerable gain to many, and to some, on the contrary, it destroyed the hope of the realization of their wishes. But all, on the whole, were exceedingly good, brave, and she admits that she is a knowledgeable woman."